In this video, we're going to discuss the sights, how to adjust them, and the sight picture for the CETME C, the FR7, and the FR8 rifles. They all use a similar sight. The FR7 and 8 was designed to train people how to use the sight system and sight picture, okay, for the CETME C. So we'll go over first the tools you're going to need, and basically I found one example of the open notch sight picture. That's the one you kind of start with because your apertures are 200 meters, 300, and 400 meters. Some people just go with the aperture and adjust the front sight that way. So we're going to discuss the open notch sights, the apertures, and everything on these guns, both elevation and windage, is adjusted with the front sight post, which is kind of similar. Anyone who has had to adjust the front sight post of an AR-15 rifle, it's very similar in some ways, but unique in its own, because windage is also adjusted, which is, I'll explain. There are two tools you will need to adjust the sights. Just a small flat blade screwdriver and this front sight adjustment wrench. You can find them on eBay and I think I got this from Liberty Tree Collectors. It's similar to the 4-prong AR-15, except this just has 2 prongs, so be careful. They're pretty small and thin, but that's what you need to make the adjustments. Okay, and the screwdriver is used, as you see on these sights in the base. That flat-headed screw there locks the front sight in. So you would have to loosen that in order to make the adjustment first. Someone told me that their screw was frozen in there. So my suggestion, if you do have a gun that's older, put a few drops of penetrating oil on that screw. You know, clean it off, clean the cosmoline and grease off. Put a few drops of penetrating oil and leave it on there, even if you have to, for days. Let it soak in. You know, just don't put a drop on there, wait 15 minutes and try to do it. If it's really frozen, you may have to put oil, stand it up like this, put a few drops of oil on there, and leave it there for a number of days. Then try to break it loose. Because if it gets stuck and you strip that out, and also find a screwdriver that fits in there pretty good. That way you won't destroy that slot in the sight. Now, for those of you not familiar, we're going to take a look at the CETME C rear sight. As you see, I have it in the open notch. And then there's the 200 meters, and that just flips around, and you line up your apertures with the sight there. On the rifles, that's your open sight, and it's a disc that you rotate. There'll be 2 settings, 200, 300, they're not marked, I don't think. And then if you rotate one way with one, that's the 400 meter setting. So those are your rear sights, and they make that sight picture like we've seen in the diagram there. Now, front sight on all of these. Now here's a good look at the front sight on the CETME C here, and then you see it's extremely similar on the other 2 bolt action rifles. The hole in the hood is for that tool to come down and we'll see if we can look at it from the top. We can't. Try to get in there. If you look on the post, there are two notches. You might be able to see it better. You see the notch there on that one. And that's how you would set that tool in to adjust it. Alright, well here's a close-up of how you would use the sight tool. You come down through and you find your little notches. And like that. Then you would turn your tool, and you use the handle to kind of give you an idea, the top of the handle, this here, and then you get your 1 turn, 2 turns, and that works on all the guns. Unfortunately, you do need this special sight tool. Okay, CETME C sight tool. And always remember, whenever you're done adjusting, it's where your screwdriver, that one's tight. You want to tighten the screw. Don't try to turn that without taking the screw out, remember, because you'll strip the threads, or you'll mar them to where you'll have difficulty adjusting that front sight. Alright. Here are two examples of the sight picture with the open notch. And it's very difficult to find any references, any explanation, and it took me a while to find this online. But I believe this is the proper way to do it. You see how when you look through the rear sight, the open notch, the top of the hood is equal there, and then that sharp post should be even with the notch. Okay, and then this other way is how the HK suggests you use the sight, and on my CA3, that is the sight picture I use to zero it in at 50 yards. Now, when I go to 200 yards with the aperture, I wonder how that's going to work. A lot of people that have difficulty in, acquiring the sight picture or using the open notch sight, just basically sight it in with just the 200 meter aperture and go from there, which, you can do it, but I'd like to figure out how to use that notch. Alright, this is my crude drawing of the sight picture, the front sight, and how that's there, and looking down just a notch, and how the front sight works with windage. So, and the little notches there are for where the little prongs go. How the front sight works with windage is if you look down through the hole in the hood, you'll see that that post, or that little spike that's there, is not directly center. In other words, the distance from the edge of the screw to that is going to be greater on one side. So, like when I got my CETME C rifle, that screw was all the way down, and this is where that post was, straight at you. Okay? So, when you change your elevation with the screw, by screwing out, if you leave it in the center here, or if you turn it a half turn, that will be over here. And so how the windage is adjusted, here's your notch. So your notch is here, and your line of sight is straight, and it's here. Okay, so your point of impact is out, say, let's go this way. Let me think for a minute. If you want your point of impact to be here, you would rotate this so this would be at an angle out here somewhat. So in other words, where this position is, it would be like right here. So when you do that and you shift the rear sight to line up with this front sight here, this will move the point of impact to the left. If you move it to where the thing is here and you shift your sight, it will move the point of impact to the right. And I believe the maximum distance is 6 inches at so many yards or something. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. But that's the idea. So say we're shooting a little to the right. Okay, so when we move, like say we're shooting here, we'll move this to where it swings out at an angle to like over in this position there. Okay, the center of this would be here, say. And then when you line the sight up, when you move that over, it moves the barrel over to the center. So that's how it works. And it also works in the reverse. So in other words, if you have it here, if it's shooting right, and you have to raise your elevation up a half a turn, you'd want it here so it would move over. That's how this thing works. It's tricky, it's a pain, and but that's how it goes. And I found I had to take some of my rifles 2 or 3 whole turns to get them to zero with that sight picture at 50 yards. Now this should be 100 meters or be a little bit more than 100 yards. And then when you just flip the round aperture over and only see the little point and line that up in the center with the 200-yard aperture, you should be on. Now some people just use the round aperture with the sight. And I mean, I've seen one guy doing it 25 yards or 50 yards or something. I'd like to use this out to 100. Then I know if I have this sight picture at 100, when I flip to the 200 meter aperture, I should be somewhat close. Maybe a tad high at 200 yards. Okay, but that's my explanation of the sight adjustment. Okay, when you turn that, we'll erase it. So when you, as you move that, then that spike will be over here instead of there. And see, then when you shift that over, it'll move the point of impact in the opposite direction. So if you wanted to move the point of impact right, you would rotate that to where that little spike is kind of here. So you see that's your angles and how it's done. So I hope that helps you out with sight adjustment because I know there's not a lot of information there. There's no clear information, no diagrams to give you an idea what the sight picture should look like. And also, if you wear corrective lenses of any type, trying to use the sight, especially on the CETME C, is extremely difficult. The rifles, I can focus a little better. But the CETME C, the way they are, and the parkerizing, it's very blurry, it's very difficult. I have to actually just wear clear safety glasses, and it's blurry, but I got the outlines, and that's it, because I tried focusing the sights on this thing. I sat there, constantly just up against the white wall. It's awful difficult to get that sight. To me now, see, the rear sight's a blur, Now it's a little, it's kind of blurry, but I can see it better. It's fuzzy, but I can get a better view of it without my glasses on. Of course, I don't have a very, well, I shouldn't have a very strong prescription, but the optometrist likes ratcheting it up every year or so as I get older with the excuse, oh, you're old, to where I have a hard time seeing it all, you know. But I hope that answers some questions. You know, when anybody got any input or something I missed, please put it down in the comments section below. And, you know, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.